In Kansas City, Missouri, Troost Avenue has a history of diversity. Unfortunately, that diversity has not always held hands with harmony. For the next few minutes, we'll walk through some glimpses of Troost in the past, glance at the present, and consider the possibilities for the future. The avenue was named after Dr. Benoist Troost, one of the early fathers of Kansas City, Missouri. The word Troost itself is actually a Dutch word. In the Dutch translation of the New Testament, it's the actual word Christ used for the Holy Spirit when he promised to send the Comforter, the Paraclete, the Troost in Dutch. I live and serve on the southeast corner of 31st and Troost with my wife and members of my parish. Prior to the development of Troost as a business center, this neighborhood was the site of Millionaires Row, one of the most exclusive areas of the city. Eventually, the residential flavor gave way to a bustling commercial and creative center. As Kansas City jazz was springing forth at 18th and Vine, young Walt Disney was spreading his creative wings at Laugh-O-Gram Studio, right next door to us on 31st Street. They say the inspiration for Mickey Mouse came from a little creature that used to nibble on crumbs in his office there. If that's the case, we have some of Mickey's descendants running around our center. Some of his early films would be featured at the Isis Theater across the street on the southwest corner of 31st and Troost. Indeed, Disney's team of young artists became the fountain from which sprang the course of cartoons and animations during the 20th century. In the 1920s, 31st and Troost was a happening place. "31st and Troost has always been multicultural. A nation of immigrants has been reflected in those that have maintained businesses and lived in the neighborhood. In the 1940s, a good number of citizens lived and worked in the area from Jewish, Irish Catholic, Greek Orthodox, and African American backgrounds. One of these was Tom Vasilides.
Really, next to the plaza was, downtown was large, and then you had 31st and Troost was a big shopping. Well, in that area there was a lot of Greeks because our church had moved from 14th and Broadway up to Linwood and Flora. And there was a lot of Catholics because of St. Vincent's, which was a big church and also a school. And of course we had the Jewish synagogues. But anyway, the blacks were, it was the culture of those days. They couldn't come back. They weren't allowed, well, I won't say that, but they didn't walk up Wayne to catch a streetcar.
With the emergence of the Civil Rights Movement and white flight, Troost was in transition. Thelma Altschul reflects on these times.
They had signs on the water fountains in black and white. We couldn't sit at a counter in a white restaurant and eat because you had to come in the back door. And they just wouldn't let you in. But in the movie, we sit in the balcony, and they sit down on the first floor. And they got lots of spitballs. The kids will be kids. In 1968, and they put Kansas City on the Marshall Ball, which means we had tanks, paratroopers, and servicemen all over the street. In order to go anywhere, you had to have a pass to go to work. If you wasn't going to work, you was arrested if you was out after 6 o'clock in the evening. way I feel about the tanks, that if they're going to have martial law and have tanks, they should have put everybody off the streets at 6 o'clock, not just the blacks.
After migration to the suburbs, 31st and Troost became like a ghost town. Harry Reeves speaks of the attempts made by federal assistance to the minority contractors and the beginning of Renewal in our area.
Put a manufacturing plant into the building to produce popcorn, which started to give some life back to the property. Because it started to bring money and all that back into fruition again. So during that period, Troost was more or less turning into a ghost town. Seems as though people kind of drifted back down towards 18th Street or further out to 63rd Street. It was very difficult to get any kind of action from the city or anybody.
Where we go from here is really a major dilemma, not only for 31st and Troost, but urban areas across the country. Do we go the way of urban renewal, gentrification, and displace the poor? Or do we find a way to truly be a community? Brother Lewis, of the Catholic Workers' Holy Family House, reflects.
Community seems not to be understood, or if understood, a deliberate attempt not to be inclusive. For example, the phrase, anybody's welcome if they can afford it. Well, obviously that's going to discriminate.
I think if we were a sane society, we would be working toward building community here and have the other people moving in be a part of a community with the people already here. I don't think that's the plan.
Well, I can just visualize what it looked like back then from the pictures that has been retrieved from the archives. And I still have visions of seeing that and being a part of it.
I have relocated here because of the personal healing, because I sense the healing of the neighborhood.